things happening, so much evil in the world. How could they be good? We'll be talking about this point, inshallah. All right. But what else? Come on, there's like a million things. Unless you've been living on, under a rock. I mean, Islam promotes violence, terrorism. That's another doubt that people have. Some people, they turn away from Islam. They don't want to learn about it because of this misconception. What else? Ustaz Samuel, what do you think? I mean, what problems do people have? Women's rights. Women's rights, right? They feel like Islam oppresses women, puts down women, right? What else? Brother Imran. Big Bang Theory, right? Big Bang Theory. Akram, what else? Good, right? Question about homosexuality, different things, right? So there are many different things. Brother Adi. Yeah, we're good? All right, so let's get started. Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. So as I said, we're going to talk about this whole issue of evil, right? Very important to understand because it's way more common than you think. What are we talking about the problem of evil? We're talking about you have a Muslim, something bad happens in his life, and he says, yo, listen, if there's a God, how could he just be, people say this. I'm not saying this, right? This is not my speech, but I've literally heard people saying this. They say, how could God exist if he's sitting there and he's allowing this evil to happen? How could God be there and allow babies to die and to have cancer and to live their entire life suffering in pain, right? A horrible life. How could there be a God to allow these things to happen? Okay? How could there be a God who is allowing there to be murder and allowing there to be all sorts of terrible things in life? Sickness, disease, hunger, famine. How could there be a God who can allow these things to happen, right? We're not even talking about Jahannam yet, right? We're not talking about the next life, right? Because some atheists and people who turn away from religion, they have a problem with that as well. They say, how could there be a God if he's going to be punishing people with constant torture in hell, right? I mean, Jahannam is no joke, right? So that's a whole other issue. I don't want to talk about that today. I'm talking about things that happen in this dunya, right? You have somebody, and sometimes it's not just the youth. It's older people having this doubt as well. You find that there's a grandpa, his grandchild dies. Perhaps there was not any death in the family like that. But his children die, his grandkids die. And then he starts to think like this. That, oh Allah, how could you let this happen? If you wanted, and of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is controller of everything. Nothing happens except by Allah's will. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted, of course He could have perhaps kept the person alive longer. So that's why they say this. Oh Allah, if you wanted, you could have kept my son alive longer. Oh Allah, why'd you allow him to get hit in a car accident like he got hit and he died? He had a whole family that were depending on him. How could you allow this, oh Allah? Right? So inshallah ta'ala, I'm going to talk about some very good arguments, right? I mean, I believe that they're very good arguments. A very good way to understand this whole concept so that you can protect yourself and that you can protect others as well by, having a dialogue with them, by teaching them, by speaking to them, especially the youth. Because nowadays, I'm telling you, if you have kids at home and you're not teaching them about Islam, trust me, they're not going to be learning about it from school. If they go to a public school, they're not going to be learning about it. And this is something that I find that's amazing. Of course, we all have our areas of improvement. But for some of us, we go home, our kids, they play video games all day, right? I think it's a holiday today, right? Kids are off from school, right? What is it, Memorial Day or something? Yeah. So kids are home, they're playing video games all day. I'm not talking about having a class at home. I'm just talking about talking to your kids. Just having a conversation with them. You'd be surprised at the amount of good that could come from that, right? I'm not talking about a class. I'm talking about just talking to your kids about Islam, right? You'll be surprised how many Muslims don't do this. So when they don't have that relationship with you where they can talk about Islam with you, guess what? They're going to be reading online, they're going to be talking to their non-Muslim friends at school, and they're going to have all these crazy ideas. And before you know it, they're teenagers, they're full atheists, they're kuffar inside. They're not coming out to you as non-Muslims, but they're really kuffar. Trust me, there are many kids like this. There are many kids like this. I know a few kids like this personally. Okay? And for some of them, I'm not going to say it's too late. It's not too late for anybody. But they've made up their mind. They're teenagers. They made up their mind that they're going to leave the house and then that's it. Right? It's happening in some extended family members. This has happened. And one of the main reasons is because of the harshness of the parents. The parents are telling them, do this, don't do this, stay away from this, you can't do this. And the parents themselves don't even understand why in the first place. And when they grew up, it was okay. They followed a bunch of do's and don'ts. It was easy for that time because there was not really much, there was no internet back then, right? You know, the older generation, there was no internet back then. There's no shubuhat that would be spread around in society as it is today. So that same methodology of do this and do that, and if you don't do this, I'm going to whip you, and fear me as a parent, that's not going to work today. Right? Kids, they're very smart. They can read things online, watch videos online. So it's very important that we understand these things ourselves. Right? So that we can protect ourselves first and foremost, because nobody is safe from deviation and disbelief. We ask Allah's protection, especially our families. So when it comes to the whole problem of evil, right? The premise is this. If God allows evil to happen in this world, okay, if God allows evil to happen in this world, therefore, God doesn't deserve my worship. Okay, God doesn't deserve my worship. God, God is not there. This is one of the main arguments of atheists is that if he allows evil to happen, then he doesn't exist. That doesn't make any sense. Okay? To them that's illogical. But that whole premise, the slightest possibility of there being any good reason for it, the slightest possibility for there being any good reason for it destroys the whole accusation, destroys the whole argument. And I'm going to give you a couple examples. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple examples. One example that I like to give a lot is the example of amputation. Right? Generally speaking, I don't know how to phrase this. Generally speaking, right? Generally speaking, can you guys think of any good reason to cut somebody's hand off? I'm talking about a secular perspective, not a religious perspective, right? But is there any good reason that somebody could have? Generally speaking, no. Like, what situation would you have to just go and just cut off somebody's hand? Unless it's like a punishable crime in a certain country, right? In certain countries they may have, that law where they cut off the hand. I'm not talking about that. But what situations could there be in which it's even better for a person that he get his hand cut off? The first thing that's gonna come to your mind is a situation where a person has a type of disease. Some people that have certain types of disease where if the doctors allow the hand to remain on the body, the disease is gonna spread from the hand and it's gonna go to the whole body. For example, I think a while ago there was some place where this person got infected with like a flesh-eating bacteria, and it was in the arm, right? If somebody has something like this and it spreads to the whole body, you're finished. So what some people would do, if you were in a situation like this, if you knew you had a flesh-eating bacteria, it was basically invading your body and it was in your hand, right? You had a cut, you touched something, and then you have this flesh-eating bacteria. And you know that if you allow this hand to remain on your body, you're gonna die. It's gonna spread to the whole body. Would you not go to the doctor to get it cut off? It would be a necessity to get it cut off. You would even go to the doctor, call the doctor, right? Get the ambulance, whatever the case is. You would actually go out of your way to go to the doctor to get cured. And if this is the only way to get cured, you're going to do it. You're going to do it. Now, generally speaking, you would not have somebody cut off your hand. You'd be like, who in their right mind would do this? Right? To you, that's something evil to get your hand cut off, right? I think that everybody can agree right now that for no reason to get your hand cut off is something evil. Right? You've done nothing, right? Why is somebody attacking you? Why are they cutting off your hand? So this same evil act of cutting off your hand, it could be good, and you could actually want it to happen if you were in that particular situation with that disease. Now, I want to give you guys a small example. Okay, a small example about this issue of amputation. Okay, let's say for example you're in an operating room, and the doctor is about to cut off somebody's hand, about to amputate somebody's hand because he has some type of disease. You're in the operating room. Now, when you're in the operating room, you're not going to fight the doctor. You're not going to fight the doctor. You're not going to stop the doctor. In fact, you would probably sit there and encourage the doctor. Let's say, for example, for whatever reason, you're in the operating room. You're going to encourage the doctor to cut off the hand. Why? Because you know the hikmah, you know the wisdom behind cutting off the hand. Now, let's say, for example, Allahu A'lam, this is purely hypothetical, but just to prove a point. Let's say we have some time machine, for example, right? We have a time machine, for example, and we bring somebody back. We bring somebody to the future from maybe 10,000 years ago. Just purely hypothetical here. We bring somebody from 10,000 years ago. This person is like, doesn't know about any of the technology that we have, doesn't know about any of the medicine that we have, whatever the case is. We bring this person to our times, and we bring that person into the operating room. Let's say, for argument's sake, this person doesn't know about amputation. This person has no idea that there could be any good reason to cut off somebody's hand. He doesn't know. So when you bring him into the operating room and he sees the doctor cutting off that hand, what is he going to think? Oh my God, the doctor is evil. Look at what he's doing. He's such a bad person. How could he do this? Now let's say you remove that guy, that caveman, whatever you want to call him, the prehistoric man. You remove that man from the operating room and you send him back in time. You send him back to his people. You send him back to his time 10,000 years ago. Guess what? He's going to go around telling people, yo, the future is evil. The future is crazy. They're cutting off people's hands. Right? They're doing such harmful things to people. Now, if you did not tell this man the reason why the doctor is cutting off the man's hand, this guy, this 10,000-year-old man, this guy in prehistoric times, he will spend his entire life, he will spend his entire existence believing that the doctor is evil. He's going to spend his entire existence believing that the doctor is evil. Now, my question is, his belief that the doctor is evil, does that reflect reality? Does that reflect reality? It does not reflect reality. In fact, the doctor is doing an act of mercy to the person. Right? The person would actually go and contact the doctor himself. Hey, doctor, like if there's no other way, cut off my hand. And he's going to sit there patiently like, hey, cut off my hand. Right? Do the procedure. He's going to put on the scrubs, whatever they give the person for the surgery. He's going to do it voluntarily. Why? Because the person who's getting his hand cut off, he knows the hikmah, he knows the wisdom. He knows the wisdom why he's getting his hand cut off, and he knows that it's better for him. But the caveman, whatever you want to, the prehistoric man, this man, he doesn't know the hikmah. Now he's going to spend his entire life, if nobody informs him of the wisdom, he's going to spend his entire life with this concept that the doctor is evil. But that's not a reflection of reality. Now what is the cure to this man's problem here? What is the cure to this man's misconception? It's just by telling him and explaining to him. Now my question is, does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by His wisdom, does He allow certain things to happen in this world that we dislike and that we hate and that are hurtful to us? Absolutely. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with suffering. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with hunger. Allah tells us that in the Quran. So for somebody to say, oh, why does God do this? It doesn't make sense. Allah tells you He does it in the Quran. Right? Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, that we have certainly created mankind in hardship. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that you will be tested. So it's no mystery. So when somebody says, oh, how come? Don't act as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't tell you already. Right? So number one, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He tests us. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He tests us in the Quran very clearly, that we will test you with hunger, we will test you with fear, we will test you with loss of wealth, with loss of life. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us with sabr. So that's the first point, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He's going to test us anyway. Right? So it's no mystery, like we're not in Scooby-Doo to be figuring this out. It's not rocket science. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that He's going to test us. Now the second point is, as we said with the caveman, all we had to do to tell him to remove his hatred of the doctor was just to tell him the reason why the doctor is doing that. Do you guys think that if we told him the reason why the doctor was doing what he was doing, you think he would continue to hate the doctor? No, if he was in that situation, he'd probably be like, yo, sign me up. Cut off my hand right now. Because he knows the what? The hikmah. Point number two, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we as Muslims believe that Allah Azza wa Jal, He does everything that He does based on hikmah, based on wisdom. Jahilahu man jahilahu wa alimahu man alimahu. Whoever knows it, whoever doesn't know it, doesn't know it. So that's the second point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Himself in the Quran Al-Hakim. And Al-Hakim means the one that everything He does has hikmah. Everything He says has hikmah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't do anything outside of wisdom. Is everybody clear on this point? So as a believer, even though you don't understand the wisdom or not, you have that yaqeen. You must have that yaqeen and that belief that Allah is Al-Hakim, number one. Whether you understand how or you don't understand. For example, in Islam, we got to pray 3 raka'at for Salat al-Maghrib. 3 rak'at for Salat al-Maghrib. What is the hikmah behind that? Perhaps we don't know. But is there a hikmah? There absolutely is a hikmah. Why? Because this is the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whether we know it or not, there's a hikmah, there's a wisdom behind it. Why does a woman have to cover her head? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hikmah. Maybe sometimes we find out the hikmah. What is the hikmah behind hijab? One can say modesty. It protects a woman, right? It doesn't objectify her. These are all different wisdoms that we can understand. But sometimes like 3 rak'at for Salat al-Maghrib. Why is that? Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Right? Why do we gotta, for example, according to that view of the scholars that say you gotta wear your pants above the ankle. Okay? Why do you gotta wear above the ankle? We're not talking about if it's through arrogance or not. Why do you gotta wear it above the ankle? Okay, some scholars mention that it's even haram to wear it below the ankle, even if it's not out of arrogance. Right? Somebody may say, what's the wisdom behind that? And many other things as well. Why you gotta grow the beard? Right? Why do you gotta trim the mustache? Why did the Prophet ﷺ tell us all of these things? Sometimes, Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best. Okay? But we must realize, right? Point number 2 is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim, and everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does is based on hikmah, is based on wisdom. Point number 3, once you know that, my question to you guys is Allah under any obligation to reveal His wisdoms? Absolutely not. You don't have any right over Allah that He has to tell you. No. Right? An example of this, if you read the books of Seerah, they mention this example. When Ibrahim a.s. took his slave woman Hajar, okay, when he took his slave woman Hajar and his son Ismail, when he took them to Mecca, right? If you read the books of the Seerah, the scholars mentioned how Ibrahim a.s. took Hajar to Mecca, and Hajar, she says, oh Ibrahim, why are we here? Why are you bringing us to the desert? Right? Ibrahim a.s. didn't answer her. And then she says, did Allah command you to bring us here? And then he said yes, and then she was pleased with that. Right? Ibrahim a.s., perhaps he didn't understand why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him in his dream to slaughter his son. He didn't understand why. What's the hikmah behind this? But did he fulfill the commandment? Did he obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Did he actually go to do it? Absolutely. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was testing his willingness. Now somebody may say, what's the wisdom behind this? Right? Maybe after the action, after the test is over, we can see the wisdom. Right? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to test his will. But can you imagine, Ibrahim a.s. is getting this revelation in his dream that he must sacrifice his son. What would be going through his mind? Right? One of us, we'd be like, what? This doesn't make any sense, oh Allah. Why would you tell me to do this? There's no hikmah behind this. Maybe some of us would say this. But Ibrahim a.s. understood that every commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's good. It's good for us and it's good for everybody. Right? It's actually more good than we would think. Another example of this is, there's many other examples of this, right? We can think about, for example, Musa a.s. Musa a.s. told his people to slaughter a particular type of cow. Right? What did Bani Israel do? They said, oh, what type of cow? Why do we got to do this? Why this? Why that? Right? Because they were questioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They didn't want to submit. So when you realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim, that solves the problem for you already. If you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're going to say, you know what? There's a hikmah in this no matter what. Right? No matter what. There's a hikmah in this. Now, somebody might say this is irrational. This is irrational. And this is a very important point that we must understand when talking to non-Muslims. When a non-Muslim comes to you and they say, oh, why do you grow the beard? What's one of the reasons that you can answer them with? Right? Why do you grow the beard as Muslims? Why do you have to grow the beard as Muslims? Like, why do you have to do this? You're at work, Bobby, he's asking you, your name is Muhammad. He's like, hey, Muhammad, what you guys growing the beard for? Why you dressing like this? Right? Why do you got to wear the pants like this and blah, blah, blah? Why do you women have to cover up? But he asks, why you have to grow the beard? What do you say? What's an answer that you would give? Good. It's a sunnah. It's following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What else? It's part of your Islamic identity. Good. What else? But they're going to say, why? Why is it part of your Islamic identity? Why is it the sunnah? You're going to tell me, yeah, it's sunnah. Be like, okay, that's cool. But why? That doesn't make any sense to me. Why is God worried about how much hairs you got on your chin? They may say this. What's an answer you may give? Somebody may say this is natural manliness. This is natural manliness. They can be like, okay, that makes sense. They're gonna ask you about something else. Oh, how come in Islam there's this? And then you're gonna try to give a logical reasoning. You have to understand that when you get into a conversation with a non-Muslim, they're gonna be asking you about a lot of these things. And if you try to rationalize it yourself, eventually they're gonna hit you with a question you don't know the wisdom behind. You don't know the wisdom behind. Whether that's the beard or trimming the mustache or whatever the case is, right? Why do you gotta fast in Ramadan? Perhaps you don't know the wisdom, right? You don't know the logical reasoning behind it. Why do you sometimes there may be a Muslim, he may be like, I don't know why I have to stay away from food and drink, but I'm gonna do it because Allah tells me. But when you speak to a non-Muslim, they're gonna try to rationalize it. The Muslim is gonna try to rationalize it and try to give logical answers. But I'm gonna tell you that could lead you down a path of failure. If you start playing that game, you're eventually going to lose. No matter how much answers you try to give using logical reasonings, you're gonna lose, right? So when you try to play their game like that, and you try to answer their questions, you will lose the game. They're gonna get you. They're gonna be like, you can answer 10 questions, and on the you can answer 9 questions. On the 10th question, they're gonna be like, aha, I know you didn't even understand why you do this in the first place. You don't even understand why you gotta grow the beard, for example, or why you have to. I don't know. What's another ruling in Islam they may have questions about? Or their hikmah might be, hidden. What's another example, like help me out here?
Like why can't I own a dog? Why can't I have a dog?
Oh, why can't you have a dog? Good example, right? They'd be like, oh, why can't, man's best friend. I mean, I got a puppy, I have a puppy at home. They may say, I have a puppy with me. Why can't you as a Muslim, why can't you have a puppy? And what are you gonna say? Well, dogs are actually harmful. Right? They'd be like, what are you talking about? I have my little Pomeranian. He's mad cute. He's at home. I'm feeding him. He doesn't harm me. They're going to be like, you would say, yeah, well, actually, the saliva of the dogs, they actually have some bacteria. And they can be like, your saliva doesn't? Your saliva has bacteria too? I mean, all of us, we have bacteria in our bodies. So when you try to give them logical reasonings like this, eventually they're going to stump you. And when they stump you, they're gonna be like, aha, I got you. I know you didn't even understand why you practice this religion. But you have to understand, why did you accept these rulings in the first place? Brother Sam, Ustad Sam, before accepting the fact that you generally can't have a dog in Islam, did you rationalize that or understand why before you submitted? No, you didn't. So you need to tell them the reason why you believe what you believe. You don't believe what you believe. You don't believe that everything that you believe in it because it makes sense to you. I'm not saying that it's illogical, but sometimes you just don't understand why. Okay? Another example, camel meat breaking your wudu. Like, chicken is nice, beef is nice, but camel meat, what do you Muslims have against camel meat? Right? They may say this. Why are you in a state of impurity? Why does it break your purification if you eat camel meat? And you may be like, well, in the camel, there's certain things and there's certain studies. And trust me, you're going to lose. You got to tell the correct answer, and the best answer to give is to be like, hey, I don't necessarily know why, but I believe in a God that does know why. And I believe that He knows everything. They may be like, well, that's illogical, right? That's not intellectual. We ask the person that sometimes you do a math problem, and you put in the math problem into the calculator. When you put the math problem into the calculator, whether it's 10 times 50, blah, 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 whatever, whatever math problem you could think of. When you put that in the calculator is going to give you an answer. If you put the right equation or the right problem in the calculator, you type it in properly, and you check that you typed it in properly, and it gives you an answer, would you say that the calculator is wrong? Would you say that the calculator is wrong? If you put everything in right, I'm not saying that you put the digits in wrong, you put a wrong number and then you get a wrong answer. I'm talking if you put the equation or you put the problem into the calculator perfectly. The answer that comes from the calculator, Ahmed, would you say the calculator is wrong? You would not say the calculator is wrong, but sometimes you put in the problem and it gives you the answer. You don't know, you don't understand why the answer makes sense. But does the answer make sense in reality? Absolutely. Does the calculator mess up? Allahu A'lam. Does calculators, do they mess up? I don't think they mess up. They don't make any mistakes. Can anybody tell me if calculators, they make mistakes? Allahu A'lam. Depending on, maybe for the problem, right? It's too much for the calculator. But the example I'm giving is that a calculator, when you put in the problem in the calculator and you get the answer, sometimes you may not understand why the calculator got that answer. Anybody who studied math, you know that this is how it is. You actually do the problem on paper, you work it out on paper, and your answer is different than the answer of the calculator. Whose answer do you go with? The calculator. Now, you don't understand why the calculator gave the answer, but do you trust the calculator? Why do you trust the calculator? Because you already have a premise that the calculator doesn't make mistakes. So whether you understand why the calculator gave you the answer or not, you're going to trust the calculator. Why? Because of your original asl, your original basis that you had, that the calculator doesn't make any mistake. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so we say that the calculator doesn't make any mistakes. Of course, a calculator, we're not comparing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to a calculator, but we're saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't make mistakes in anything. Anything. So therefore, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't make mistakes in anything, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfect wisdom in anything, if Allah decrees something and there's a result, why should we say that that result doesn't have any wisdom if we don't understand it? When we do the same thing to the calculator. You guys understand the problem here, right? So you ask the person, they say it is illogical. This is the claim that some atheists make. It is illogical to believe in a God that does things that you don't even understand. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes a ruling that camel meat breaks the wudu. They say, if you don't understand this, oh Muslim, then you're following a religion that doesn't make sense to you. But then you ask them this same question about the calculator. What's the answer going to be? They're going to say, yes, I accept the answer of the calculator. So how come you're telling me it's okay to accept the answer of a calculator, a little piece of machine that we created, but I can't accept the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't make any mistakes and He created everything? Isn't that like a lot more logical, a lot more reasonable to believe in? Does everybody understand how this is a good argument that you can use against somebody, right, who's trying to discuss with you? Okay, so we must realize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is under no obligation to reveal any knowledge to us. It's only a mercy of Allah. That's why in Surah Al-Isra, Allah He says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. You've only been given a little bit of knowledge. We don't have absolute knowledge. So just like the caveman, if he doesn't have a certain type of knowledge that will prevent him from having a doubt, just like that, sometimes we don't know why Allah is doing certain things. The caveman is going to hate the doctor because he doesn't understand why the doctor is doing what he's doing. But in reality, we know the doctor is doing something good. Just like that, a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may hate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because he perceives that Allah is doing something bad. But he doesn't understand that perhaps it's better for him. And if you just told him the hikmah, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the hikmah to him, then he would perhaps understand, oh wow, this makes sense. I see why Allah did this. And that's actually more in my favor. Right? Perhaps, for example, somebody breaks their legs. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that if this person had healthy legs, they would walk towards zina. They would walk to somewhere where they would leave Islam or do some type of sin. Right? Perhaps a person in the akhirah may thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that. So we have to realize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is under no obligation to reveal any type of knowledge to us except out of His mercy. So we must realize that submitting to Allah, Islam means submitting to Allah, submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you're submitting to everything you understand, you're not submitting to Allah. You're submitting to your aql. But submission to Allah, pure submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is submitting, whether you understand the wisdom behind it or not. And that shows a person has firm conviction in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, firm faith, that you actually believe in that first premise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't make any mistakes. So once you have this strong yaqeen, it doesn't matter what's going to happen to you in this world, right? You're going to have yaqeen. Your family can be killed, may Allah protect all of us, in a car crash, for example. Right? You find that some believers, some Muslims, they say, Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Every situation, Allah is deserving of all praises. Now let me ask you guys, give me some examples of certain things that we perceive as evil that actually have overwhelmingly good consequences in the long run. Give me some examples. Think about this. If you don't give me any, yeah. It looks evil, but then later on, it actually comes out to lead to more benefits. I have many examples I can give, but I don't want you guys to share some, inshallah.
It's like you're going to get a plane and you miss the plane. You're going to get a plane, you miss the plane.
Yes. Let me share with you a story, a crazy story about, I don't know. You want to share a story about it? No.
The plane going in the black and crash.
Good. Okay, so let's talk about the plane one first, right? There's a really, really interesting story that I heard about. It's of this Syrian refugee family. Okay, Raise your hand if you heard about this story. You heard this story before. Really mind-blowing story. So the story is that this family, this husband, I think he was an American, but he was in America. And he was getting things ready. This was, I think, like in the 1950s, a long time ago. Yeah, he was in California. And the husband was getting things ready for his Syrian family to come to California, or to come to California with him, okay? So they were in Syria, his family was in Syria, and he was in California. So he's getting things ready. You know, when you come to a country, you have to get certain things ready. You got to get an apartment. You know, you want to make sure that when your family comes, they have a place to stay. So he came first. He got things ready. He's like, okay, you guys come over. So they come over. They take the flight to come to America. Their flight comes to New York City. The flight comes to New York City. So you have, this story is about the daughter of that man, the mother, and some other siblings. So the daughter and the rest of her family, they come on the plane and they land in New York City. Now, when they land there was some like interview that they had to give. They had to go through like an interviewing process before they can get on the plane to go to California. So from Syria, they go to New York. They're supposed to go to California to meet the father. So the daughter now, I think they were supposed to take some pictures of the family, each one of them. And the officers, the immigration officers, they're like, hey, you know, they told the girl and they told the mother and all of the other sisters that, hey, you guys have to take off your hijabs. You have to take off your hijab so that we can take these pictures so that you can get on the plane and go to California. So I think the rest of the family, all of the other women, the mom and the other ladies, they took off their hijabs to take the picture. But the young girl, she said no. She's like, I don't care. I don't care. You don't want to put me on a plane to go to California. I'll go back to Syria. I don't care. I'm not going to take off my hijab for no reason. Right? For any reason, I'm not going to take off my hijab. So then she didn't budge at all. And now, guess what's going to happen? The mama is going to get upset. The mom is like, why can't you just do this? I mean, come on, you're going to ruin our whole trip, right? You're going to ruin our whole trip. Why can't you just take off the hijab? So, you know, I think eventually they gave in. They're like, okay, you take the picture with the hijab, no problem, right? So she takes a picture with the hijab on, whereas all of the other women in her family, they all took off their hijabs. So they're all really upset at her. They're like, why do you have to delay us like this? Guess what? They were delayed so much that they missed their flight to go to California. So now they have to wait for a later flight. This whole time, the mom, she's screaming at the daughter. She's like, why can't you just listen to me? Blah. You know, you could just imagine what a mother would tell a child like this, right? So they go on the next flight, and the whole plane ride is a bad experience for her because her whole family, they're basically hating on her. When they get to California and they meet the father, he's like, thank Allah you're alive. Thank God you're alive. And he hugs them. And then all of them, they're like, what are you talking about? Why wouldn't we be alive? He said that the previous flight, the flight you were supposed to go on, that you were scheduled for, that I was waiting for you to come on that flight. He said that flight crashed, killing everybody on the plane. So the little girl, she said that hijab saved our life. Right? Hijab saved our life. So perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused something to happen. The mother didn't like it. The other family members, they hated it. They perceived it as something bad and evil. But it was actually good in the long run. Right? And it's actually something that they would thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for saving them from. So sometimes think about you in your situation, in your problems that you're having, whether it's a death in the family, a sickness in the family, a disease. You are just like how they were in the plane. You're just like how the mother was in the plane. You don't know what's going to be at the end of the road. You don't know what Allah is sparing you from. And you're on that plane and you may blame Allah. You may blame your family members. You may have so much hate for people in your heart and for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saving you from something that you can't find out right now. But later on you will. Okay? Good, excellent. Any other examples? Yeah. Okay, Sulh al-Hudaybiyah. Good. Excellent, right? So when the Muslims, when they made a treaty with the mushrikun, the treaty was really in favor of the mushrikun. And the Muslims, they kind of lost heart when they saw the treaty. I don't know if you guys, if you read the seerah, you know what I'm talking about. It's a lot, I don't want to get into it now. But basically, the Muslims went into a treaty with Quraysh. Yeah, they went into a treaty with Quraysh, and the treaty looks like it's in favor of Quraysh. And if anybody reads it, you'll see it's kind of unfair, right? The Muslims got the short end of the stick in this agreement. So the Muslims, they were kind of disheartened by this. That, oh man, how come they have so much advantages and we have to agree to all of these things? right? But eventually it actually worked out in the Muslims' favor, right? And sometimes you don't see that. What else? What are some other examples? I can give you one example. Let's say a child. You know, kids sometimes they don't have the mental capabilities of understanding certain things. Let's say, for example, you have a 3-year-old son. You have a three-year-old child. Sometimes if you take this child to the doctor and he can't understand, or let's say let's say a younger child, let's say 2 years old. He could barely say a few words. 2 years old. You take let's say your 2-year-old son has a disease, he has a problem. And he doesn't understand the problem. Right? Understand my example here. I think this is a very good example to understand as an analogy here. Imagine you have a 2-year-old child. Your 2-year-old child has a disease, has a problem. And your 2-year-old child doesn't understand the problem. He doesn't understand what's going on with his body, whether it's cancer, whatever the case is. And this 2-year-old child, the only way to get this kid cured, he says, take him to the hospital and for doctors to poke his body with needles and to carve him up underneath an operating table, over an operating table. So, underneath the operating table, right? But on top of an operating table, the kid, he has to go through extensive surgeries, but he doesn't understand it. What is the little child going to say to his parent? What is the little child going to say to his parent? Mommy, why are you allowing them to do this to me? They're poking me with needles. Boo-hoo. He's going to cry. And he's going to say the doctors are bad. Remember, the first part of this example, I told you the kid can't possibly understand it. If he can understand, he has the capabilities of understanding, that's a different story. But he's 2 years old, he can't understand. He's going to spend his entire hospital stay crying and even hating you, mom, hating you, dad, because of what you allowed the doctor to do. But in reality, was the doctor doing something bad? No. In reality, was the parent doing something bad to the child? No, it's act of mercy. But because the child doesn't understand that, he doesn't have knowledge of the parent to understand why the parent would allow something like this, the child is going to say the parent is evil. Why can we not understand that Allah has absolute knowledge? If we can say, like, what would you say to the kid? That kid, just trust your mom. Wouldn't you say this? You tell the child, trust mom, trust dad. If we can say to a child who doesn't have knowledge to trust your parent who has more knowledge, then why can't we say to each other that we don't have infinite knowledge, Allah has infinite knowledge, and Allah has more right to be trusted than your parents? Isn't this the case? Absolutely. I'm going to give you one example, okay? And in no way am I belittling the calamity that happened, but look at the shooting that happened in New Zealand. It's just terrible, disgusting. We can all agree on that, and it's really unfortunate. But did some good come out from that? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring out some good from that? What? You say yes, what? People converting to Islam after that. The amount of publicity Islam got, good publicity too. You see, like how I think they played the Quran, was it the national radio or something? They played the adhan. They played the adhan. You have like all of the, like a lot of these women in New Zealand put on the hijab, right? They were like, oh, this is actually, I feel better wearing this. Let me become a Muslim. Many, I think it was like, I read somebody posted something.
Parliament session was started.
They played the Quran. They had the recitation of the Quran in the parliament, right? You have, I think it was like what, 300 people accepted Islam, right? I was reading. 350 people accepted Islam. Think about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala caused, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested the people, right? Tested the Muslims by losing, 50 people? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought 350 people into the fold of Islam. Like I said, this is no ways belittling the calamity, absolutely. Right? We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive those people that passed away and to make it easy on their families. Because wallahi, even up to now, even like months later, don't think that it's easy. Anybody who's lost a family member knows that sometimes it takes years to get over it. So we're not belittling the calamity, but there is some good that comes out of that. There's some good that comes out of that. I know of people, they lose a family member and that brings them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That brings them closer to Islam and they practice Islam, they start praying. So sometimes you may not see the wisdom behind it. So we must understand, back to the original argument, they say that if there is evil in this world, then therefore God is evil. God is bad. And there cannot be an evil God, therefore God does not exist. We as Muslims, what do we say? What's the argument towards that? We say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Hakim, number one. Whether we understand the wisdom or not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us, but there's always an overwhelming good reason and a wisdom behind it. Okay? I'm going to give you another example. I'm gonna give you another example, and this is my okay. Let's make this the last one, okay? When imagine you have lions in Africa, okay, and there's a lion, he has a serious tooth problem, right? Or he has like a serious like he has a thorn in his spine, whatever the case is. The lion has a medical problem. Now this problem is seriously affecting the quality of life of the lion. Now, if there's a vet that wants to operate on this lion, what are the steps that must take place before that? Can he just be like, hey lion, just sit down, sit on your side, I'm gonna poke you with some needles, I'm gonna cut you open and take this thing out of you? You think the lion's like, okay doc, get to work doc? No, he's not gonna say that, right? You gotta tranquilize him, you gotta put him to sleep. Why? Because the lion, because of his limited intellect, he doesn't have any intellect. The lion doesn't have a mind to understand what you're gonna be doing. And you come from a perspective where you have superior knowledge, superior wisdom. What you do to the lion is going to perceive as evil. As soon as the lion sees you coming with your medical kit, and your tranquilizer gun, he's like, this is trouble. This guy's looking for trouble. Like get out of here. And he's going to try to kill you. Right? If that lion wakes up while you're operating on that lion and he sees you cutting him open and he's feeling the pain, he's going to kill you. He's going to bite you and kill you. Is this not the case? So you need to put that lion asleep to do what you want to do to that lion, and eventually, is it overwhelmingly good for the lion? Absolutely, it's good for the lion. But the lion can never understand that. Sometimes Allah Subhanahu wa Taala allows certain things to happen to us that we can never understand, because to understand you need to see the whole picture, and because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala sees everything. Sometimes it may take you years to see the reason, right? Sometimes you may see the reason tomorrow. Right? But, like a good example where you see the wisdom behind things years later is when people are old. As a teenager, sometimes your parents prevent you from doing certain things. And as a kid, as a teenager, you're like, my dad, sometimes they will curse out their parents. Why won't you let me go with the park to hang out with my friends? But when that person is way older and they have gray in their beards, they're going to do the same thing to their grandkids and their kids. They're going to prevent them from going to certain places. And as a kid, you're not going to understand why your parents are doing certain things to you. But eventually, what do some old people say? That, when I was younger in Guyana, my teacher used to beat me, but it was better for me. It was actually good for me. My parents, they used to prevent me from going out to the clubs. I thank my parents for this. I was here one sheikh, he was giving a lecture, and he said that he memorized the Quran on his own later. He memorized the Quran on his own later. And he said that he wished, it's an older man talking, he said he wished that his father beat him to memorize the Quran when he was younger. He said he wishes that his father did that to him. I'm asking you, any kid that's getting smacked for reading the Quran, you think he's going to be like, yes, daddy, keep spanking me? He's not going to be saying that, right? He's going to be hating his dad. He's going to be like stewing his teeth. He's going to be walking away. He's going to be all upset. He's going to go to his friends. He's probably going to curse out his dad, whatever the case is. But this guy is saying, I wish that my father beat me when I was a little kid to memorize the Quran, and they forced me to do it. So that now I would actually know it better, right? So that whole premise, that whole argument that, we don't have to deal with that argument as believers. We don't have that problem because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is Al-Hakim. Maybe if you're coming from a Christian background, you're going to have this problem because they don't have the same aqidah of Allah that we do. They don't have the same belief in Allah Subhanahu wa Taala as we do. Allah is perfect in every way. So we ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to give us understanding in His deen. We ask Allah Subhanahu wa Taala to protect us from doubts. Anything else anyone would like to add? Any questions? Anything?
For example, testing.
What?
Testing. Like I'm a teacher, so when we set up questions for exam, it's like 5 questions. It's 3 questions, easy. For those who are not studying well or not doing well, they will just pass. Answering those 3. There will be 2 questions. One will be moderately tough, and the 5th one will be really tough. That's for A. So if we want to be an A student in front of all, then we have to prepare for real tough test. We have to stand for real tough test, and we have to accept that and come. We expect that we'll be A student.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very beautiful point. Anything else? Anyone else would like to add anything else? Any questions? Everything clear? Is it clear? Alhamdulillah. Alright, طيب. So let's stop here. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Actually, right before we stop, so basically the same discussion that I just had with you guys, I had this discussion with the Saturday kids, the Saturday program, right? The masjid, we have a Saturday program with the kids, right? And I gave them all, I gave them all of these arguments and whatnot. And then after that, what I normally do is I pretend to be like in the role of an atheist, right? Obviously, of course, I'm not an atheist, right? But I try to pretend and try to give them the arguments that atheists give. And trust me, these things are widespread. Right? If you don't know about these doubts that people have about Allah and evil and things like this, trust me, it's widespread. Try to go home, try to educate your family, try to share what you've learned, right? Because definitely it's something that we all need, inshallah ta'ala. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.